Well, hello, everybody. My name is Joanne Shearer Parkin, registered dietitian and nutritionist here today. Talk to you today about understanding sugars. So I know many of you that are joining me are really excited about your journey to reduce sugar intake in your diet because you're suspecting that some of your fatigue, your brain fog, your headaches, just your lack of well-being may be related to some of the sugar intake in your diet. And so I'm here to help you on that journey and to help to figure it out. So let's get started. So here's what I'm going to cover today in the next few minutes that we're together. We're talking about the different categories of sugar in the diet, the effect of that sugar on your liver, inflammation, and chronic diseases. Next, talk about the recommended daily limit for sugars and how to read labels and find those hidden sugars. So there are three categories of sugar, and I've broken it down this way. Added sugars, which would be caloric sugars or sugars with calories, and non-caloric sugars, and sugar alcohols. The next category is naturally occurring sugars from fruits and vegetables and dairy. And last is processed refined carbohydrates. And you go, wait a minute, that's not sugars, carbohydrates, sugar? Well, the processed carbohydrates, yes, because when you consume white flour or like processed rice flour, which you find in a lot of gluten-free foods, these flours and the carbohydrates in these break down quickly into glucose, which is a form of sugar that's in your blood. And it gives you that big spike in your blood sugar after you consume those foods, only 2 hours later to have a big crash. So metabolically, and the way that these carbohydrates from processed foods are metabolized kind of has the same effect on how you feel. So let's start with added sugars that have calories, caloric sugars. These two sources, granulated sugar and high fructose corn syrup, are the most consumed sugars in our diet. Granulated sugar is from sugarcane and sugar beets. And these sugars are 50% glucose and 50% fructose. Remember, glucose, that's the simple sugar that floats around in our bloodstream. Glucose is the form of sugar that our cells use for energy. Now, high fructose corn syrup is made from corn sweetener, corn syrup that is chemically altered to increase the sweetness. And it is a little higher in fructose than sugar cane and sugar from sugar beets. It's inexpensive to produce, is why they use so much of it, especially in packaged foods. And it's a whopping 40% of sugars in the US diet. And I suspect that may be true for Australia, UK, New Zealand as well. This is a chart from the US Dietary Guidelines from 2020 to 2025. And they list the top sources and average intakes of added sugars in the US population. And you look there, you'll see that sugar sweetened beverages contribute 24% of all sweeteners in the American diet. And next, a second close behind is desserts and sweet snacks. So if you just focus on those two categories, if you're trying to reduce your sugar intake, you're going to do a great job at eliminating a lot of excess sugar intake. Now, both cane sugar, beet sugar, and high fructose corn syrup are high sources of fructose. Now, fructose travels to your liver, and your liver converts it to glucose. Again, remember, glucose is the form of sugar that your cells use for energy. Well, your poor liver cannot convert all that big load of fructose. And what happens is that your liver will convert some of that fructose into fat. This then can, over time, lead to a condition called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And it's a really serious problem. In the United States, for example, 25 to 30% of all US adults have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and it's super high in people with obesity and diabetes, 75%. That sluggish fatty liver. The good news is it is reversible. It is reversible. You cut out all of that added fructose in your diet, getting back to eating natural foods that have natural sweeteners and natural sugars, and adding what I do is I add Protandim to my diet to help my liver. This is a liver health product. It increases an cellular antioxidant enzyme called glutathione. Glutathione is essential for phase 2 detoxification of your liver. So great for your liver. Cut out all those excess added sugars and add one a day pill Protandim to help your liver to heal and detoxify. Now, I wanted to bring you the latest update in science about non-alcoholic fatty liver and the relationship between too much fructose and that disease. And I found this great study just published hot off the press from 2022, and it was a meta-analysis of 51 studies, and they looked at the effect of fructose-containing sugars by food source and at different levels of calorie intake on fatty liver. They found, and this was not surprising, right? They found that excess energy from sugar-sweetened beverages, which is fructose, caused large increases in fatty liver. And only just one serving of sugar-sweetened beverages increased that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease by 40% versus those that didn't consume any of those sugar-sweetened beverages. So you kind of get the idea that all these added sweeteners and sugars are really hard on your liver. Now, fructose from fruit, they found had no effect. In fact, one study showed a benefit of natural fruit sugar from fruits and vegetables. There's another category of added sweeteners and sugars called sugar alcohols. They're kind of, like I said, a little category of their own. There are 8 different sugar alcohols. And the way sugar alcohols work is that they are not absorbed in your intestinal tract. Therefore, you're not absorbing all of the calories. So that's why so many of these have like 1/2 or less of the calories of, for example, like granulated sugar. The most common one right now, the one that's most popular with people who are trying to cut down on their sugar and carbohydrate intake is the sugar alcohol called erythritol. Erythritol has 70% the sweetness of sugar with only about 5% of the calories. And it really has a minimal effect on blood sugar. And it has less digestive upset than other sugar alcohols because it gets absorbed higher up in the intestinal tract. And of course, it's nearly sugar-free, so it's really popular. You could kind of use it a lot like you use regular granulated sugar. And it actually has some health benefits. For example, it really can help to reduce dental caries. But it also can have some side effects. One is that a recent study was published that found that people with the highest level of erythritol in their bloodstream have the highest risk of some cardiovascular side effects, particularly blood clots. Now, the probably drawback of that study was they never really did measure actually the erythritol intake of the subjects. They just looked at the bloodstream because you can get erythritol naturally from foods. So, I think that we need to kind of take that study with a grain of salt or a grain of sugar and just to be cautious with all sugar alcohols. And I think a lot of people that are on the ketogenic diet have been using quite a bit of erythritol. And I think that when it comes to any sweeteners and added sugars, you're trying to wean your palate off all that intense sweetness and sugar. So in all cases, it's always good to try to minimize your sugar intake from all different kinds of sources. Now, there are foods that you'll find with natural sugars. Those would be your fruits, your vegetables, and dairy foods. Dairy foods have lactose, which is a natural sugar. These foods also contain fiber, which slows down the absorption of those sugars. vitamins and minerals, which help you to metabolize and utilize the sugars, and plant nutrients, phytonutrients, and plant compounds that are helpful for reducing cancer, aging, and inflammation. So no problem with any of these natural sugars. Now, the other sweeteners that are in the natural sweetener category would be honey and pure maple syrup. Honey is one of my preferred and favorite sweeteners because you get some nutrition and nutrients with honey, some antioxidants, some minerals, some of those phytonutrients. Honey has a lower glycemic index than granulated sugar, and it has some health benefits: wound healing, allergies, cough, sore throat. In fact, when I had COVID and I had that lingering cough, my doctor said to drink respiratory tea, add some honey and lemon juice. And so that's what I did. And I buy my honey locally, and that's what you should do, is go to your local honey producer and get local honey, because it's also been shown that when you can purchase your local honey, that it can help with allergies, especially the raw honey, which has not been as processed. And I always also buy the bee pollen locally, and I just take and have a little bit of that, just chew on a little bit of that bee pollen every day as well to help me with my allergies. Now, honey, as far as the makeup of honey, it's fairly similar to granulated sugar. It's about 40% fructose, 30% sucrose. Another sweetener that I use is a little bit, and is the pure maple syrup. And pure maple syrup, again, yes, it's sugar, mostly sucrose, but it also has nutrients. In fact, it has quite a variety of antioxidants, 24 to 30 different types of antioxidants, high in zinc and manganese, and lower on the GI and the glycemic index scale than granulated sugar. So how I use these sweeteners is, for example, give you an example, like with honey, I make my own homemade granola bars. The only sweetener in my granola bars is 1/2 cup of honey for a large pan, 9 by 13 pan of granola bars. Now with the pure maple syrup, for example, I use this to make my almond cookies, which the only sweetener is 1/4 cup of pure maple syrup. Isn't that fantastic? I can actually have a cookie and enjoy it and not feel guilty. But of course, like with these sugars, understand that this is still sugar, and you need to calculate this as a part of your 2 to 3 tablespoons per day, what you're going to try to limit in your diet. In terms of trying to be completely sugar-free without any added sugars, the guidelines that we get from all these different health agencies say, hey, if you can just reduce it down significantly to 1/2 or less. That's what the goal is. Now, there are non-caloric sweeteners, and there's the artificial sweeteners and the natural plant sweeteners. So let's look at the artificial sweeteners. So these have been around for many years. We started out, we're all excited about these artificial sweeteners, right? Because, oh my goodness, what a deal for people with diabetes and people trying to lose weight. So over the years, we've found that there are some health risks with these artificial sweeteners. And so I think I'm telling people to avoid them, because there are some other alternatives that you can use instead of these artificial sweeteners. Now, there are non-caloric sweeteners that are plant sourced. Whole leaf stevia and monk food are both great sources. For example, this is my favorite little brain drink, which is called Axio. And this is sweetened with whole leaf stevia. And it has B vitamins, L-theanine, green tea extract, DMAE, and it's really wakes up my brain, focus, concentration, and memory. And it addresses fatigue from the level of your brain, not less loaded up with a bunch of sugar and caffeine, right? There's a little caffeine, but it's just enough to be able to work synergistically with all those other nutrients that are in this brain drink. Now, erythritol is probably of these is the most processed, because it's mostly sourced from corn. And that's another concern some people have, because most of the corn now is genetically modified corn. So you want to kind of look and see where are these sweeteners sourced? How did they make them? How are they industrialized, produced as well? So kind of you want to dig a little deeper when you're looking at these. Now, so we talked about those added sugars that you're adding to beverages, you're baking, doing all those things. But then there are these hidden sugars in all of our processed foods. And I have some foods that are most common that have hidden sugars, such as catsup, pasta sauces, salad dressings. Who would have thought, right? Big source, especially salad dressings have high fructose corn syrup, and most of them are made with soybean oil, seed oils. This is why I make my own salad dressing, a little olive oil, a little lemon juice, a little bit of herbs. I mean, yummy, delicious. Just make your own fresh homemade salad dressings. That's what I do. I try to follow a Mediterranean diet. That's more the dietary pattern that I recommend and I try to follow. Oh, if you follow a Mediterranean diet, you're going to cut out a lot of sugars in your diet, especially a lot of these hidden sugars. How about protein shakes? Who would have thought, right? I was at my local box store. I was looking at a whey protein shake and a big old bag, and I was flipped it over. I was looking at the ingredient list. I found there were 2 different artificial sweeteners in this no sugar whey protein shake. So it's not just looking for hidden sugars like corn syrup or granulated sugar, also looking at what are the artificial sweeteners that are in these foods as well. So that brings us up to how to read your label. When you're looking at a label, you're going to be reading ingredients, right? You're going to be looking for what kind of sugars and sweeteners. Remember, if it says no sugar, for example, like this kombucha that I found that was a new product in my local box store. And I thought, hey, I love kombucha. That's a new product. I'm going to try it. And I didn't realize until I got home that it says on it. Do you see what it says? No sugar. So if it says no sugar, it's got to be sweetened with something. So I found out when I got home and I started reading my label, and it's sweetened with erythritol, which is the primary sweetener. That way down on the list at the last, it says that it also has stevia in it. So better than having a kombucha, probably with high fructose corn syrup, but it still has a couple different sweeteners. And so the label on this shows that it includes added sugars 0, right? So that when it says 0 added sugars, if you have the artificial sweeteners or something, erythritol, it's going to be saying 0 on it. So let's take a look at these honey toasted pecans, this label. It's a little bit of fiber. It's only 1 gram, but look at the total sugars, 18 grams total, including 18 grams added sugar. So all the sugar in there is from added sugars. And interesting that 18 grams, that's almost like a heaping tablespoon of added sugars and 1 ounce of these honey toasted pecans. They took a nice food, wholesome pecans and loaded it up with sugar to get you to eat more, I guess. Oat milk and your plant milks, you want to be sure to read your labels on those. This one has added sugars. Also, if you read your ingredient list, you'll find that many of them have a lot of added gums like guar gum, carrageenan, a lot of different gums. So if your gut is, you have a sensitive gut, you may want to also pay attention to those. The other one over here, which is Yoplait, I think this is peach yogurt. 2/3 of a cup, not even a full cup serving of this yogurt. And it has 16 grams of added sugars. You notice it says total sugars 21. That's because some of that sugar is naturally occurring from the milk, lactose. But this is again that's another tablespoon of sugar right there. So if you have a toasted pecans for a little snack, you have this yogurt for breakfast. Right there, you've got 2 tablespoons of sugar. And what if you have a food bar in the afternoon, a Cliff food bar? What's in this Cliff food bar? Another 18 grams of added sugar, another tablespoon of sugar. So, the guidelines are that you should eat, if you're female, the limitation for women is no more than 2 tablespoons of added sugar, which is right about at that 30 grams of added sugars a day. You can see with just eating these processed foods, these packaged foods, are already up to 3 tablespoons. Now, 3 tablespoons is the limit that's recommended for men. And So you could see that the average intake now in the American diet, at least, is between 7 to 10 grams of added sugars. And so much of those added sugars come from these processed and packaged foods. So with that, I'm going to wind down with this last summary slide that I called the good, the bad, and the ugly on sugar. And so we talked about the good sugars, natural sugars from fruits, vegetables, dairy, honey, and maple sugar in moderation. Why? Because these foods are also providing nutrients, not just empty calories from, for example, like honey maple syrup in moderation. And your natural sugars, of course, you're getting all those great plant foods along with it. And also for an added sweetener, a little bit of stevia and monk fruit are just fine as well. Now, I don't have those sugar alcohols on there because they're kind of between the good and the bad, actually. I could have just kind of dumped them in there. Because they can be a really kind of an excellent choice, especially for people that are overweight, those on the ketogenic diet, those with diabetes, that they can be helpful for people who really do need to cut down on their carbohydrate intake. And so they can be helpful. Just remember that the sugar alcohols can cause a little bit of that digestive upset if you have a sensitive gut like I do. And then we don't know, like with erythritol, I think that the jury is still out on that, right? As far as is it good or bad? I don't know if think it's quite as bad as what that study said, but we'll see, right? We need more research. And then, of course, we know that granulated sugar, high fructose corn syrup, those are empty calories. A lot of fructose, not good for your liver. That poor liver is having to process all of that. And then we talked about the ugly and to avoid is those artificial sweeteners. So this has been kind of a quick summary just to kind of help you get started on your journey and reducing sugar in your diet. And remember, just if you concentrate on eating unprocessed whole foods, follow like more of that Mediterranean diet. What I have found over the years, and I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people with helping them plan healthy diets and people with diabetes, I find that as people focus more on just eating nutrient and healthy foods, getting in those 8 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, really heavy on the plant foods and on the vegetables, is that they are by getting all that good nutrient, those good nutrients and nutrition, that it reduces their cravings for sugar. As they eat healthier and healthier, they lose that intense desire for all that sugar. So it's a lot about more what you add into your diet than what you take out. Okay, so I hope that this has been helpful. I wish you the very best on your journey to reduce your sugar intake. And I hope you all have a blessed day. Take care. Bye-bye.